Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. I love waking up in the morning and having a great conversation. And sometimes we start late because I'm already having a great conversation with the guest. Pirate Michael is in the room again, and I'm just excited to have a conversation again today. How are you doing, my friend?
Great, man. It's great. It's great to be back. It's nice we let all of them in on our conversation now. We've been at it already. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about things that were very incredibly important to a lot of people in LinkedIn and online and creating businesses.
Yeah.
And the strategy about, a lot of entrepreneurs, they just take on almost anything because they want to make sure that they have, the opportunity. Everywhere I look, I see opportunity.
Yes.
And my biggest challenge is to say no.
Right.
I can't do that right now. And I was explaining to Michael before the show started that I'm feeling like I got a lot of things going on, and the next phase is document and delegate.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to measure the results and the outcome and where you're going, so you know if you're improving your process.
Yeah.
So
the reason it's important to say no is because there's only so many things you can say yes to.
Yeah.
For one thing, you hit like critical mass. You have to be able. It's really, I've developed this thought process that I'm calling the Iron Mind now. And it's sort of like, how do we lock in? What I've done is, as you and I have talked about in the past, I have this background in endurance athletics, and through my about 15 years, I've been doing endurance sports. And this thing that we're talking about right now, it's so interesting because in the midst of everything that's going on, people are doing some amazing kinds of things.
Yeah.
People have made this decision, not just to survive this thing, not just to succeed in this thing, but to actually thrive in the middle of all of this. And I think that is just, in your own life, can you think about it, how that's happened for you? Like where you made a decision to thrive?
Absolutely. 2020 overall has been one of my most productive years in recollection. It's just proven to be, it exceeded all my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because of the challenges that I faced.
Right.
And some of the things that I just decided, hey, I am going to go after this. I'm going to go through this process, and I'm going to make sure that I make it matter,
Right. I think the other thing this freed us up from was that we didn't have to act like we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew what we were doing. I remember my first race. I'm 56 years old, which means I'm completely out of my mind. I decided I'm going to do this 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon. This is nuts. And I needed adult supervision. We talked about that earlier. So supervision. So I hired a professional triathlete to coach me. 10 weeks before the race, I'd never ridden a bike more than 35 miles in my life. So she had her work cut out for her. And I had this insane list of races I was going to do. You can't do what it is I did. I finished the race and I said to her, "What made you think I could finish this?" She said, "I had no idea if you could finish this thing, but you had a plan and you thought that you could." Who was I to tell you that you couldn't do this thing? And I think that what happened with this was there was nobody around to tell us we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do when your entire focus. People were like, my business ground to a halt in March. I basically go out and meet and eat for a living is what I do. I should be as big as a barn. I never eat lunch. I eat lunch out all the time.
If you didn't run to every meeting, you'd be okay.
And when that ground to a halt, I looked at this and I said, okay, what's my model? I need a model. I need something I know. I need something I know. The brain likes it familiar. It doesn't do well if you're unfamiliar because it doesn't have a model. The brain likes what it likes because it knows it. It doesn't like it because it likes it. If it doesn't know what it is, it dismisses it because it doesn't have a model. So I said, what do I have a model for? And I said, okay, I know how to be flexible and adaptable. I know how to do that. I mean, I've had races. One race in 2014, I'm swimming and all of a sudden a kayak guy comes over in a kayak and he's kind of pushing me off where I'm going. I look up and he said, lightning hit the lake, get out of the lake. They don't train you to get out of the lake. I mean, what do you do? And we're on the, we're walking up this.
That's like my goal is to get across the lake.
Exactly. Like, it's the race on. Did they cancel the race? And it's like, well, you need to just be flexible and adaptable. So I looked at the thing and I said, okay, so I heard about this thing called Zoom. So I better kind of learn about that. And then, there's all these like podcasts. I've never done a podcast. I don't know. Well, I mean, no, probably the first person to ever did.
You ever heard of the pirate broadcast?
I know about the pirate broadcast, as you know, very quickly. I learned about the pirate broadcast. Everyone knows about the pirate broadcast. How can they not? So I looked at that and I said, okay, if we can find a time in our life where we were flexible and adaptable, mine just happens to be the race.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what it is. Go back and find something that you can anchor your thoughts on and say, what was a time where I was flexible and adaptable? What was a time where I needed to shift? Where I needed to make, for a lot of it was, for a lot of people was, my kids are home. My kids are in school all day. No, they're not. I mean, I had, I love some of my Zooms. They're hysterical. So I'll be talking to some big corporate, vice president or something. All of a sudden their kid will stick their head in the picture. Like, you want to see my tooth that just came out? And, the person will be mortified and I'll be like, hey, it's good. I have children. They were little ones. They lost their teeth. It's okay. Yeah. I understand you're not like
well, I think a lot more people need to shift their focus and say, I get to versus I have to.
Yes, I choose to.
I choose to.
I choose to. If I say I have to, it puts me in a victim mode.
Yeah.
But I choose to. There's very few things I have to do. I mean, I have to breathe. I have to eat. I mean, most things I do, I choose in the course of the day. Yeah. And the word "have to" is a very limiting kind. That's a very good point. It's a very limited. It's a very kind of. And I think the other thing that's really so important is I can't do these races if I'm not focused on the positive. I just can't do it. I mean, I can remember in 2008. It was a horrible day. It rained 5.5 inches in 13 hours. It was 60 degrees. I was just it was the most physically miserable day of my life. It was horrible. It was raining so hard that how it felt like pebbles when I was on my water bouncing off onto my body. And so I made this mistake and I really got with about maybe 25 miles left on the bike. I looked forward and I said, I have 25 miles more to go in this mess and then a marathon. And I'm going to, I've got 50 something miles and it began to overwhelm me. The thought of it began to overwhelm me and it almost shut me down. And I knew at that point, and when I'm in the race now, I focus on what I have. I mean, think about it for a minute. In 2020, what are maybe like 4 or 5 really good things that happened to you?
Oh, well, I've expanded my business. I've launched and expanded on the Pirate Syndicate. I've clarified my message. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've met great people like Michael, and and learned a lot about focus and attention and how to build systems. I've met, all of the amazing people that I've met just through the Pirate Broadcaster. It's phenomenal. I got Gabriel. He's one that I met. Leslie. Good morning, Pirates. She's an amazing individual that I get to meet. Abu. Hello, Michael. And Darren Birch, another amazing pirate that's been here on the world. Good morning, Darren. How are you? And Leslie says, paradigm shift happening here.
Awesome.
Absolutely fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. We're going to shift it some more.
And Darlene says, mornings.
Morning.
And Tapas says, good morning. even though I know it's probably evening time here. And happy pirate community. Absolutely. Nick Gimmel's here. Darren says, choose to be kind. Smiling is a gift that costs nothing and has infinite power to unite.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It is so, this is the kind of thing, Michael, that really charges me up in the morning every single day. And I get to do this. I mean, we've got over 330 episodes of the Pirate Broadcast.
Right. You know, if I think about in my life, you know, I celebrated my 40th wedding anniversary this year.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Our 5th grandchild was born. Over Christmas time, it was funny because I would have people say to me, you know, we did like, you know, unwrapping packages on Zoom and stuff like that this year. And I had people say, how was your Christmas? I said, I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite time of year. Why do you think I would let this mess up my Christmas? It didn't mess up my Christmas. My Christmas was great because I decided my Christmas was going to be great. Nobody gets to decide it. We have control over 2 things. It doesn't matter what's going on around us. We have control over how we respond to circumstances and how we treat other people. No one gets that but us. No one owns it. No one can touch it. We can only give it away. And we can decide that we're going to keep it. So to be able to look at this thing and say, you know what, in the middle of all of this, I'm going to focus on what works. The decision to have, you know, my days are good.
Yeah.
Days are good. You know, I'm like the human, so, you know, I give days that aren't great. But my theory is this. This is my theory based on nothing. I think that that there's 10 days a year where you can do no wrong. I mean, you just want that day to go on forever.
Yeah.
People that call are giving you business. The only thing that comes in the mail is money. I mean, it just goes forever. And then there are 10 days while you wonder where you got out of bed. And you say, God, whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please make this stop. Now, if that's true, and I have no evidence it is because it's just what I made up, I think then 345 were up for grabs. They can do anything. They can be anything. And if that's the case, it's like that's the vast majority of days. And, you know, at the beginning of this, I had a couple of days where I was really feeling down.
Yeah.
And my wife said to me, you know, when you find my husband, like, would you like, you know, tell him to come home? Because, like, who is this man? And so I said to myself, okay, whatever you're saying to yourself, you know, it's, it's true, whatever you said. How do you want to feel? And I said, well, not like this. And so I practiced something called reframing. And I actually learned it when I had surgery for a torn rotator cuff. I tore my rotator cuff and I discovered it before the 2006 Ironman. And the doctor said, you have a torn rotator cuff. I thought he said cup. I didn't know what he was talking about.
All right.
I said, well, I don't know what that means, but I got this race to go. And I actually literally, I taped my shoulder with duct tape, like for real, like great duct tape. They didn't have kinesia tape or anything at the time. I did 2008, but by then my arm was about to fall off. And so I had surgery. And the doctor said to me, I had the Baltimore Oriole team physician do my surgery, and I had Michael Phelps, physical therapist. I told people, if this thing messes up, it ain't going to be the help. It's got to be the patient, because I got about it. And the doctor said to me, we're not trying to get you ready to take a can of peaches off the top shelf. We're getting you ready to basically put extreme athletic pressure on that shoulder. So you need to give me a year.
Yeah.
Give me a year. I'm like, okay. I had no idea what I was promising. I went into this deep depression. I'm like, oh my gosh, exercise isn't what I do. It's part of who I am. What am I going to be? And I said, so the question is, when you don't like where things are, where do you want them to be? Ask a positive question. In life, you get the answers to the questions you ask. If you're not getting the answer you want, ask a different question. Don't ever assume there's not an answer.
Frame it or reframe it.
Frame it or reframe it. So what I decided to do was to reframe this thing. And I said, what do you do when it works? And I said, well, I put on my tri clothes. I put on whatever I'm going to work out in. I go to the gym. I do my workouts. And then I have this right here. This contains every workout for the past 15 years is in one of these books. I track every workout I do every day. And it's not like some kind of obsessive compulsive disorder or something. It's for historical perspective. So if I have an injury, or if I get sick or something, I can look back and say, is this an anomaly? Is this normal? So it gives me, because if I can measure it, I can manage it better. We talked about, you and I were talking about that, off air. And I said, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. In the beginning, I could maybe do 10 minutes of rehab. I would literally get dressed to go to the gym to do 10 minutes of rehab, come back and write it in my book. So that was the one thing I did. The next thing I did was I said, well, I trained for the races. Well, I'm not going to have a race. Okay, I am going to have a race because I'm going to get a reward. At the end of a certain amount of time, they're going to give me back my bike. Then they're going to give me back my run. And the last thing they'll give me back is the swim. And so I basically made those my goals. And each time I got that, that was like an accomplishment moving forward to the latter thing. And at one point I went to my physical therapist. He said, what did you do this week? I said, I worked out 4 times. He said, you can't work out. I said, no, we're not going to use the R word, rehab, because I hate that word. So we're going to reframe that and give it a different word. So nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what's going on, give it another kind of meaning. And what that allows you to do is be able to look at it and say, well, what if I looked at I've been in business for 40 years.
Yeah.
I had to pivot more times than I can remember. I said, it's just going to pivot again,
Yeah. It's just, and that's the way I like to look at life in general is, okay, it's not what's happening to us. It's what's happening for us.
Right.
And what we can do with what we have right now.
Yeah.
And it's right. Like, okay. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And that happens in every piece of life you have. It's like, okay, something goes wrong, at work, or, your car runs out of gas, or, everything is something that we have to deal with. It's a circumstance that we get the opportunity to test and measure our outcomes.
Yes. So many things in a race I have no control over.
Yeah.
And it's
you don't have any control over the weather.
I don't have any control over how somebody else has trained and prepared. Mm-hmm. I have no control over certain things that happen in a race. And, in 2017, I was doing, this was in the fall, in Lake Placid, New York, where they have 2 seasons, July and winter. And evidently the second season had decided to become early. And in what is calendar summertime, I get ready to do the race. It's 36 degrees and the water temperature is 61 degrees. I get out of the water and I cannot feel my hands. There are 2,200 people in the race. There are 100 people left in the transition area, and I am one of them. I am not the world's fastest person. I am not that slow. Yeah. I said to myself, what can you do? As I'm coming out of the transition area, I looked to my wife and I shouted, it's not a swim meet. This is not a swim meet. This is a 3-sport event. And I said to myself, unleash hell, because I can bike. And I decided to count people. I needed something to do. I was so far back. I decided to count people. Over the course of the bike and the run, I passed 600 people and ended up finishing on the podium after being one of 100 people. I had no control what had happened in the water. I had total control how I respond. The more you can have these kinds of experiences and build those up in your mental bank account, the more you have the access when you get stuck.
Yeah, I love what Darlene says. I was just commenting that once before a speech, I called my fear as excitement and changed my perspective.
Yes. I have a little trick that I do. There's a scene from the movie All That Jazz about Bob Fosse where he gets up in the mirror before he goes on stage and he says, it's showtime. Every time I speak, I go into the bathroom, I stand in front of the mirror and I go, it's showtime. And that puts me in the zone and off I go. And so that's great that, what Darlene did, it's kind of like whatever works, but knowing what you can and can't control is really important. I love this way that they start the race. They give the athletes their instruction, and these are the instructions. Take what the day gives you, because it's going to give you something. It's an up to 17-hour problem-solving event.
Yeah.
All you can control is your attitude, and we'll see you at the finish line. And I just think that's a great way to just go through the day and to go through your life.
Yeah, absolutely go through your life.
Yeah.
Has there been an accomplishment that you were um, you were in business around and that translates into business from your racing experience? You know, the ability and the opportunity to frame things in your business or frame things in you know, day-to-day life and how that
Yeah.
applies. Because, you know,
Yes.
when you're racing, you know, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's, you know, there's something, it's a process, you know, it's a journey.
Right.
However, in life, it's much more than that, because it might be day after day in the evolution. And you talked
Right.
about pivoting, and the story we tell ourselves helps us, you know, we define what that means to us.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing that can happen is when you're sort of knocked off guard. In 1989, so I started my business in 1981. So my business up and running, and my business was doing fine. I was actually doing very well. I was heavily, for just some reason, I had become heavily involved in the construction, real estate, development community, and there was a short recession. And as one of my clients put it, every day we'd open our door, we increased market share because somebody else did not. And I lost 60% of my business in 1 week. I refer to that as a bad week. Now, we had two little kids. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, and I was the show.
Yeah.
There's an adage: when a man knows he's going to be hanged in a fortnight, it concentrates his mind wonderfully. Well, I really didn't have much time to worry. I had to get on the stick. And I realized what had happened was I had two major components in my business. I had this management consulting part, and I had a corporate outplacement part. And I realized that that particular part I had sort of abandoned a little bit. And so what happened was I said, okay, the lesson here is build up another part, so that if the left hand doesn't get you, the right hand will. Because if businesses are closing, they're probably laying people off, so they might need that. Well, when the financial crisis hit in 2007 and 8, I had my two best years ever, because
Mm.
what had happened was, it's not just what happened, it's what I had learned from what happened. And I had gained that. And I said, okay, so what am I going to do? So again, it goes back, whenever you have an experience in and of itself is just an event. And
Yeah.
nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it. So, we can decide to give something an enormous kind of meaning. And I said, okay, so when things have sort of like slowed down or moved directions, I'm like, okay, I've pivoted before. I can do that. It, it, it's
I
just
was
really.
almost ready to sneeze.
You
Uh, uh,
do if you feel you need to.
well, what really struck a chord with me, Michael, in the story is that nothing has meaning until we give it meaning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the only meaning anything ever has. I mean,
Yeah. And if we change our story, we can
yeah,
change our outcome.
exactly, because we can change. I've had, during a race, it's not a question of what's going to happen. It's when it happens, what are you going to do? Because something's going to happen. And all that you can do is basically put yourself in a responsive kind of mode rather than reactive. And, part of the decision that I make each day is I make a conscious decision to have a good day. And
Yeah.
it's very much in part a selfish decision, because I'm hanging around in my own head all day, and frankly, I'd rather be around a pleasant person than an unpleasant person. It's really,
Absolutely.
it's not
Leslie says, so many great nuggets this morning.
great,
Thank you, Leslie.
great.
Darlene says we can write some of those paragraphs. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can. We have to be aware of what we can control and we can't. What we can, use that to leverage, and we can expand in that space. You know, that's such a true story. It's like, write your own outcomes,
mhm,
generate and focus on what you have control over,
yeah,
and also don't limit yourself to the outcome based on what you know, because like you said, I didn't know if I could do it. Your
right,
coach didn't know whether you could do it.
right.
And who is she to say that you couldn't do it?
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't think we have the right to tell anybody they can't do something because I mean there are four words I call them the death words. Practical, realistic, doable, possible. They're nonsense words. They're made up. They're made
Yeah.
up. The way we know they're made up is because what one person did that was completely unrealistic, somebody else did. I decided to do something this year where I decided to really mix it up. So here I'm going to be 71 in a few months,
Uh-huh.
and so I'm already at the point where you shouldn't be doing all this anyway because it's insane. But we have our core belief system. Smiles are free. So mine is that age is just a number. There's no expiration date on dreams.
Yeah.
Magic is real, and anything is possible. And I live by those things. So the first one, age is just a number. It's just a weird number. Now it gets weirder all the time. But I said to myself, okay, I was training for my seventh Ironman, 7 at 70. And I was going to be the baby in my age group, and I was going to make some noise, and they took my race away from me. Okay, what can I do? Well, I can go in a corner and, pout and complain about it, of which, the known universe is going to care one way or another. Or I said, let's do something bizarre. Let's do this. And in Ironman year, that's when you do the heaviest load of training. I said to myself, not only am I going to stick to Ironman, my body doesn't know a race isn't coming up. It thinks it's going to be a race. I'm just not going to tell it. So I decided to do is I said, I am going to have not only the highest volume of training this year ever, I'm going to have it with the lowest incident of injuries. So I trained almost 400 hours this year and basically injury free. So I decided to just blow it up. I wasn't going to think out of the box. I'm going to blow up the box. And what I learned this year about my body, having no stresses of races on it, has been incredible.
Wow.
And I've just continued the training. And so I'm still on heavy is a relative word, but it's a load that my body can handle. And my connection to my body has never been better. And so look at these great friends we've made that we might not have made, but that we were all on this platform. And we're now meeting people offline and having real relationships with each other.
Absolutely. Kathy Spooner says it as well. Yep. Age is just a number and not a deterrent for pursuing dreams and goals.
You got it, Kathy. You are right.
You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Positively.
True. So, you look at this, and I think the other thing that's important that you have to do in the races is you can't think too far ahead. The one time I did was in 2008, 5.5 inches of rain, 13 hours, 6 degrees, freezing cold. I started calibrating how many miles I had left, and it almost shut me down. And so I learned to stay in the present. When I'm in the water, there is no bike. I got going on in the water, not to get kicked in the head, not to get poked in the eye, not to get run over. I got plenty to do. It's, it's almost 2.5 miles to swim. I got things to do. As soon as I get out of the water, there's no more swim. The swim is gone. Now it's the bike, and there's no run yet. And there's not a run for a long, when I'm about to get off the bike, I start thinking run. So I'm only where I am. So in many ways, it's both the longest and the shortest day, because we adults have become not very good at staying in the present. Children are great. Children own the present. I mean, children live there. We have very small grandchildren, and they're just awesome because they only want to be where they are, and they make you be where they are because they're little and they need. But what happens is we adults, we tend to have one foot in the past thinking about what we should have done, and one future thing about what we're going to do. And so we miss the present. That's why as you age, time goes faster. It doesn't go faster when as fast as it always did, but we're not there.
Yeah.
We're not there. And if you remember in March, this really messed up people's time. I read somewhere that, somebody wrote, the longest 2 years of my life were 1990 and March, the longest 2 years. I mean, that was, because it seemed like people didn't know what day it was. People didn't know what time it was because all of their frames of reference it. And so for a minute, we were locked into the present again. And March was this incredibly long month because we were there every day figuring out what to do about it. Well, you can take today and you can make today as long or short as you want it to be. I mean, You really can. You just have to decide to be there. So what what I've been able to do is I'm very clear about my goal. That's the other thing that's so important
Yeah.
is that when you think about things where you thrived, I'm going to bet that you were disciplined and hyper focused.
Yeah.
That you were locked in. That's what allowed you to get there. That's whenever we get to those places, that's what's going on. Is that we know exactly what the direction is. I know it's very clear to me when I start these races. I'm not doing all this and not finishing. That's not going to happen. I mean, kidding me?
Well, I remember many times riding a bike hundreds of miles in a day and looking at the next telephone pole and saying, okay, I just need to get to the next telephone pole.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just going to get to the next telephone pole. You don't think about the distance. You think about the next.
What is right in front of me. But this ability to be hyper focused. People have said things like, I can't wait till I get my life back. This is your life. What do you mean?
This is your life. Every day is your life.
Every day is your life. There was actually something in the Civil War that soldiers suffered from. It's called nostalgia. And they began to mentally break down because they wanted where they were before. I want to be back on the farm. I want to be home. I want to be, and some of them would just have complete emotional breakdowns.
Yeah.
There are many people that desire that. I am very clear about what I want. I'm getting that vaccine because I don't want one of the lottery tickets from hell. I don't want one of those. You might be a winner or you might be no. I'm not buying a ticket. So I've done this thing. I can go out and, you've ridden hundreds of miles. We can go out and lock in a discipline and do the distance. I've done this thing over 10 months. I can do the next 8 weeks standing on my head. Are you kidding me? I'm not getting that close to the finish line. It's really kind of understanding, what is the goal? So many times, whenever you get stuck, ask yourself 2 questions. What's my goal and what are my concerns?
Yeah.
And
what's my goal and what are my concerns? Darlene says, fantastic, Michael. Your energy is infectious. Thanks for brightening my morning. So
it's my friend over here. He brings out the best in us. Yeah.
Jason says, don't miss the present.
That's why they call it a present. Because it's great.
That's why we call it a present.
Because it's so great.
She says, the stream always lifts my spirits and helps me more grateful and appreciative. True gifts. Kindness is cool. Smiles are free. Absolutely. And Kathy Spooner wraps it up with, being mindfully present in the moment got me through hiking in the desert heat with my kids and 10-mile hike out of Grand Canyon, Havasu Falls. It's really, it's really important for people to recognize that, yes, transition happens in our lives. Transition takes place all the time. And sometimes it's so subtle that we don't recognize it as change. However, you have the power and the authority to put meaning in a positive way to those events, those activities, and what you're doing. And it's just amazing to me how far we can actually go and how much we can actually do and what we can actually accomplish in our journeys. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you and all the great energy you bring to the room and being a pirate and the community. And I really love and appreciate all of the people that join us and that are involved in the community and everything that we do here in the pirate broadcast and the pirate community. So it's really important for me. I think I saw somebody else, Howard Kaufman. Good morning, Pirate Nation. Yes. So we are here. We are strong. We are going to continue to be here. And it's really important for me to highlight people like yourself, Michael, that are doing great things and helping others around you. So I applaud that. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Everybody have a great day today.
Yeah. Have an amazing day and continue. So don't go away, Michael. I'll be right back, and then we'll continue with our conversation. Thank you, everyone. If you enjoyed this show or you liked the episode, please go over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, do some social things, like, subscribe, share it out, and let people know that we exist, and let this message be shared with other people, because I think it's important. And right now, as we go through this year, continuing this journey into 2021, I think it's important that people have at least a way of getting some attitude adjustment and lighten their load a little bit for the day. So
check me out on LinkedIn in a couple of days, because I'm doing a presentation on creating the Ironman, and everybody's going to be welcome and invited to come attend that.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. And if you're not connected to Michael, connect with Michael. Tell him you're a pirate and you want to connect.
Unstucker.com.
Say that again. What is it?
Go at unstucker.com. My website.
Unstucker.com.
Yes, right. Or on LinkedIn, Michael Bryant. You can find me there. Yes.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Enjoy the day. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.